Hello.
Hello and
This
welcome. Okay, are you intro?
No, you don't know. You took over.
Hello and welcome to this special bonus episode of I Hate Your Movie.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Rick.
You know that. This is a bonus episode.
Well, you never know.
You never know. Someone might have pirated it. Someone might have leaked the links to WikiLeaks.
Julian Assange is listening to it right now.
Yeah, that's why they want to expedite him. This week, I wanted to do movies that we want to see. And that means either based on a book, based on history, based on a person.
Not movies we want to see, films we'd like to see made.
There you go. I've got 5 examples and a few honorable mentions.
Okay, so you got 5 examples and a few honorable mentions. So you've got like 8 in total.
Yeah.
I've got all honorable mentions because I haven't created the structure of these things at all. I just wanted to say, oh, this is a cool thing that should be a film.
We'll see what happens. Maybe this is going to be the second episode we can.
Did we can one before?
Yeah, it was movies never made. And it was just basically me reading articles and you're like, that's funny. Can I start?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got more than me, so you should start.
I want to see a movie about the creator of Wonder Woman.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Yeah, probably I told you because I keep going on about it. Because I think this guy is fascinating. There's been like documentaries and like TV movies. It's just nothing great. He's just had such a fascinating life and such a fascinating character for the 1930s. His name is William Moulton Marston.
Okay.
Basically, he was a psychologist, a psychotherapist, who had a lot of very progressive opinions for the time, including he thought that women should rule the world and not men.
Okay.
Which is like, it's falling on the other side. But for the time, it's crazy to think things like 1930s, to think like that. So basically, he was in a polyamorous relationship with 2 ladies.
Okay.
Both of them also like research people, and they helped him and they worked together to make stuff.
Did he have a comic background or?
No, how that happened was he was writing for a magazine that, you know how nowadays there's those like Life Choices or whatever it's called, those kind of magazines that have like pop psychology.
Okay, yeah.
He was kind of doing that, and he wrote an article responding to someone who attacked comics. He responded to them praising comics, and he said, oh, it's like modern mythology. And that's how he got the job.
Okay.
Now, I don't think they ever told him what to do. I think they just gave him free choice. And he made Wonder Woman. He put all his ideas in there. Complete female society. Lots of bondage. Because he was a BDSM guy. He has like lots of funny quotes. I don't have it in front of me, but things like, oh, if we could all learn to enjoy bondage, then we'll be free. Things like that. Like Wonder Woman's braces come from backstories that these Amazons were enslaved.
Okay.
And then they keep the brace as a reminder. And then, that's why she has a whip. Her first kind of supervillain was Eviless, like just a proper BDSM character.
I think when you assess a lot of superhero costumes, you probably end up with the same thing. If you were to see someone in a Black Widow costume from the MCU walking down the street, you'd be like, BDSM.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's partially to do with like all comic artists are perverts.
Yeah.
So the Wonder Woman at the beginning was like really outwardly spoken feminist, sex positive, all that kind of stuff. Also, in addition, this guy with one of his girlfriends created the first polygraph test.
Okay, wow.
He's the co-creator of lie detector. Public announcement: never take the lie detector. It's about 50% accurate, which is about the same as guessing. But it's still kind of interesting that he was like so obsessed with the truth. And it's like he has Wonder Woman's lesser truth and he has the polygraph test. And how I want to see this movie, right? I think it'd be really cool if that would be like parallel storytelling. Mm-hmm. His life and Wonder Woman's first appearance kind of going back and forth with all the similarities.
That sounds interesting.
There is TV movies and stuff, but nothing. This needs like a proper budget, I think.
The first one I'm going to say was a play I saw in London. It was called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of it?
No, but I like the title.
Yeah, the play is about this autistic kid who finds his neighbour's dog dead with like a garden fork stuck in it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't quite know how to process it, and he ends up accusing his dad of killing his mum, and he ends up running away to I think his aunt's, and he finds his mum living there. But the entire play was set, all it was like 3 walls that were laid out in a grid.
Okay.
Do you know Community?
Yeah.
When they go into the Imaginarium and there's like, all it is a black room with tape on it. It's that. And the whole play is done like that.
It's basically a holodeck from Star Trek.
Pretty much. And every now and again, they just project something onto the floor. And they will project a train thing onto the floor, and it'll be him moving the train around. But it's a really interesting story. And you don't really see much positive portrayal of autism. It's very much in film, all the films that I've seen, it's used as a tool for like useful in the story.
Yeah, they have superpowers.
Yeah, and this is just about a kid struggling to like comprehend the reality around him. And I think that's a really interesting concept that really doesn't get much focus.
And it sounds like the visuals kind of complement that.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure it out, and we kind of see through his eyes all the things he's trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's a bit of like a coming of age thing as well, because he's a young adult and he runs away from home and he has to travel to London, and it's about how scary the world can be at that age in general, but especially when you're really struggling to understand kind of like the social aspects of it all as well. It's a very interesting story.
That could be, what's the new headset that just came out? The Apple something. Mac Imagination.
Mac Imagination. Mac and me imagination.
Don't take the Apple. I just learned about it. I think that would be like a cool use for this, like even as a player version. It is like a VR headset or AR headset.
Okay, I'm waiting for the AR to blow up. It has way more potential than
what
VR.
I've seen is about to. Mac Imagination.
Mac and me imagination.
It sounds cool. I want to see the play.
I would love to see the play again. I don't think it's in the West End anymore. I think they tore it now.
Stop me if you heard this tale before. There lived a certain man in Russia long ago. He was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. Most people look at him with terror and with fear, but to Moscow chicks, he was such a lovely dear.
Rasputin?
Yeah! Yeah, I'd love to see a Rasputin film.
Yeah.
God, I just watched some documentaries about him. He was really fucked up and weird.
When The King's Man came out, and the big thing was Rasputin was one of the bad guys, if not the bad guy in that film. I had a quick look into him, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Here's how I want to do this film. Have you ever seen The Death of Stalin?
Yes.
And not just bringing that up because Russian. I think this would be like a cool kind of similar vibe thing. Like in that movie, all the things that are funny in that movie is funny because it actually happened.
Okay.
So Rasputin, basically, he was a guy in Siberia from just the most remote village you can think of, and he somehow ended up in the royal palace, the last of the Romanovs before communists took over, and he was kind of the advisor to the Tsar and the Tsaress, which apparently is a real title. I looked it up, and he was an Orthodox Christian guy, but within that there was a sect that he belonged to, the Clistus, something like that.
Yep.
Where they practice sex magic. Which is exactly what you think it is, because they believe that like when you reach orgasm, like you communicate with God.
That's why so many people say his name.
Nice. And so basically this Rasputin guy, he was like a weird, smelly bum.
Yeah.
Who promised people he can heal them, and he was really obnoxious. He like eat his boogers, and he promised things for sex, and he's the guy who was partially running the country. So I think it would be cool in the Death of Stalin kind of way, but you kind of just present it like this is what happened.
Yeah.
And the comedy just comes from like everyone is enamored with this fucking bum in the palace, in this fucking idiot, and he somehow gets all the women, and he kind of like puts everyone in a mass hypnosis about himself. Then it makes everyone believe that he's some sort of second coming of Jesus. And there's like, yeah, that's just some wild stories. I've heard that it wasn't uncommon to see women in the palace grab his penis,
Right.
And pledging their fealty to his penis. His penis is in a museum.
Really?
Yeah. His magical penis. Magical Rasputin
In which
penis.
museum?
I think it was St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to see that film.
I thought you said I want to see that penis.
That too, yeah. I want to see that legendary penis. It could end in an interesting way as well, because
Didn't he die in an interesting way?
he did, yeah. So there's the thing, is like there's a lot of myths and real stuff combined and stuff, because people at the time really believe that he's basically running the country, which as far as we can tell, not really, but like he was a close advisor, spiritual advisor. Basically, every advice he's given, he crumbled the institution of the royal family in Russia, except the last one. Do you want to guess, based on the time period, what was his last advice?
No, I have no idea.
He advised the king not to join World War One.
Okay.
And that's the first time the king said, "No, I'll join." And that was the downfall of the whole. That killed everything. All the communists took over. And there's a myth as well with his death. So apparently they shot him like multiple times, and he was still like moving, and they couldn't kill him. So they dumped him in the river, and there's like conflicting reports that it looks like there were water in his lungs, so he's like somehow still breathing. And then he looked like he was trying to claw out the ice. I'm not sure how true that is, but I wouldn't mind seeing that in the movie, you know. Over to you.
Over to me. So I'm going to switch up to a real person.
Yep.
I would like to see a film made out of. We've spoken about it many times before, so we're not going to cover it. Yeah, that's... Yeah, we've spoken about it many times before, so we won't cover it too much. But why is there not a film about Jackie Chan's life?
Yeah.
That would be the most interesting film you've ever seen.
Maybe it's too recent. Were they waiting for him to die or something? He's never gonna though.
No. The only problem I see with it is who makes it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want it to be Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, a film gets made anywhere else and it's not going to be as widely distributed.
It should be the Ed Wood guys.
The Ed Wood guys.
Yeah, so the writers who did Ed Wood, and they did Dolomite. So they kind of specialize in filmmaker bios.
Okay.
They're really on point and funny and good. You know, Ed Wood was directed by Tim Burton, and that's excellent, but Dolomite was directed by some asshole. But the writing of that is really good, so maybe they should attempt it.
Maybe. It would just be a really interesting film from all of his childhood, going through the school of, like, I think it's Chinese opera or Chinese acrobatics, that kind of abandonment that you can feel that he would have felt at that time. And then you go to young adult where he's on these movie sets and he's doing stunts, but he's getting injured all the time. You can cover his personal life because he wasn't a particularly good parent.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, or husband. And you can kind of use that to show kind of like, hey, he's very successful now, but does that make him a good person? And then towards the end of his like Hollywoodish career, which kind of ends in Rush Hour, he's kind of trying to take down the triads because they're really involved in Chinese cinema and he's really up against them.
Are you for real? He tries to
He's
take
not
down
taking
the
them
Chinese
down,
mafia?
but he's like he's campaigning against them
Okay.
being in.
I thought he's like he's living his
Fighting
movie.
them down.
Yeah, it's like, he goes out. "Wah!" Yeah, I'd like to see that. What about the Jackie Chan animated Saturday morning cartoon adventures? Wasn't that the same
Perfectly
thing?
historically accurate.
Alright, you gotta like him. Jackie Chan, where's the talisman? You gotta find it now. You always do somehow.
But yeah, maybe they'll save it until after he passes away.
Yeah.
But his life is just so interesting start to finish. Like, imagine a scene of a young Jackie Chan meeting Bruce Lee in a film. A lot of people would be like, whoa, that happened.
That's what Tarantino should make. Not
Yeah.
film, but he makes some boring movie review film.
Yeah.
All this led up to your movie review film. You know? It was teasing like, Kill Bill 3, Star Trek. No, it's going to be about a reviewer. Reviewers are the worst.
Podcast is close second.
Yeah. So, you kind of mentioned this in your Amadeus, which has come out by now.
Amadeus.
Amadeus. Amadeus. Famous stutterer of songs, Falco. You kind of mentioned this, like, you know, about some sort of chess genius women
Yeah.
who grew up in an environment where they were made to be geniuses. That's exactly the movie I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I know a lot about this because they're Hungarian, and I grew up like with this knowledge, and I always thought it was like really interesting. So basically, guy in the 60s, 70s Hungary, he was called Laszlo Polgár. He was kind of researching this idea of where does talent come from? Does it come from birth, or does it come from lots of practice and perseverance? And he wanted to research this. He wanted to research this officially, and the government told him to go seek a therapist.
Okay.
Like, you're stupid and your ideas are bad. So he did the only reasonable thing he could. He went on communist Tinder. He wrote a bunch of letters to ladies,
Okay.
basically asking, do you want to have a kid with me? I'm doing a research. And it worked with someone. He must have a good argument. But as far as I could tell, it's genuinely what he wanted to, you know, I'm sure he wanted to get laid as well, but, you know, that's just a side project. So he found this Ukrainian lady called Clara, and they had like a nice family together. So 3 daughters happened. You know how that happens. You know, I don't have to tell you that.
What?
So the first child was Susan. Zsuzsanna.
Susan?
Yeah.
Is that a traditional
No,
Hungarian name?
Zsuzsanna.
Okay.
But I'm translating. It's the equivalent
Yeah.
name. So Susan was the first subject, also known as child number 1. The story goes that they went into this like chess club with his father, age 5, old man, cigars, smelly people, and she could barely reach the table, but she beat all of them. They had to shake her little hand. They set loads of records, youngest women, grandmaster, things like that, but I don't know who did what.
Yeah. Didn't only 2 of them reach that height stage? I thought they all play it, but only 2 of them were like the best.
Yeah, so the middle one, Sophia, was considered the most lazy.
Okay.
She's still like the 6th best woman chess player in the world. So, you know, lazy is very like, what's your perspective on that? Because think, so Judith became the first, and then Susan became the second, and then she became the 6th. Like, come on, that's still really good. So the movie I want to see through the youngest Judith's eyes, because she had the most to prove, and she came the furthest, interestingly. She had the most against her in terms of all these previous 2 sisters, huge successes. It looked like that she was the most ambitious out of all of them. The other thing I'd like to see in this movie, the structure is kind of like a battle of sexes kind of thing. Because Garry Kasparov, who was the most famous player at the time, Grandmaster, he watched Judith play, and she was 15 years old, by the way. There's an interview with him where someone asked him, do you think Judith can beat you one day? And he goes like, well, she's a really good player, but a woman has a weak brain. And
Oh my God.
it was like all intellectual about it. It's like, you know, women can't fight and this kind of thing. What do you predict happened? She beat not only him, but all like 11 living grandmasters.
Wow.
And almost, I think, in a row. She was explaining in a TED talk, I'm like, okay, so Garry Kasparov told me I'm not aggressive and I don't understand battle. So I just fucking went aggressive on him. I just went for this fucking king and nothing else. Like, I didn't even care about anything else. And that chess game ended in a few moves. He would just stand up from the table and he just gave up.
You already realised
Because he's like, he knew he lost. I don't think he felt like he lost. I think he knew he lost.
Mm-hmm.
He saw all the other possibilities. I was like, oh shit, I lost. I don't want to actually look like I lost. Everything I seem to gather from this is that what you think is their upbringing was like, oh, come on, do the chess. But no, it seems like they actually come from a loving environment.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I read about it, it was the guy who was writing the book. He was doing unsuccessful athletes and competitors and how they got there. And he interviewed them and they were like, no, our childhood's brilliant, because it wasn't forced on them like at a really young age to do chess. It was in with their toys was chess pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And if they chose to play with them, great, because they saw like the younger ones saw the older sister playing chess. They wanted to,
Yeah.
but the dad wouldn't let them because it was kind of like, no, you're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
You can play later. So when they did start playing it, they were really excited about it,
Yeah.
which then starts them on their path to where they are today.
Yeah. His original question, whether talent is born or not, I think he's answered it. Kind of proved it.
Yeah.
It's all about hard work and perseverance and wanting to do it. I think they should have done this instead of Queen's Gambit.
But it doesn't end tragically, so it's
Yeah.
not as interesting as a story.
Yeah, they lived happily ever after.
They had nice childhoods, they were very successful,
Yeah.
and they lived happily ever after the end.
They're doing TED Talks and shit. You can really focus it on the Gary Kasparov battle.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that could be like the big climax.
Well, but they've already done that with the tennis one, though. It's literally called Battle of the Sexes.
I know. I haven't seen that movie, but
Okay.
I was just thinking about it while thinking on this. But it doesn't matter. Like you can, I think just because like Gary Kasparov's kind of comments
Yeah.
was so insulting, it'd be kind of good motivation for
But that was the plot of Battle of the Sexes because he came out and said the same thing.
Yeah.
That women can't do tennis. Battle of the Sexes 2. This time it's Chesnell.
Battle of the Sexes 2 checkmate.
Yeah. There you go. Practically writes itself.
It does.
So, have you ever heard of the TV series Neverwhere, written by Neil Gaiman?
I've read the book.
Okay.
This might get contentious. I like Neil Gaiman 50% of the time.
Mhm.
I think one half of the time he's really good, and the other half of the time he's like up in his own ass and sniffing his farts.
Okay.
And I think Neverwhere is that. Is that?
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. So the story of the book Neverwhere
Yeah.
comes from a BBC TV series that he was writing.
Okay.
And it got kind of taken over by the executives, and they all wanted to put things into it that they wanted, and they wanted to take things out that he really liked. And so he got to a point where he goes, right, fine, do what you want. I'm just going to write a book.
Mhm.
And he came up with these ideas, and the executives were like, no, we don't want that. And he's like, fine, I'll put it back in the book.
Okay.
And that went on and on and on. And he doesn't really like the TV series because it's not very good. I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips.
I didn't
It's-
even know about the TV series.
Yeah. It's one of my favourite books, even though it's classed as a kid's book, I think, at early teens.
Okay.
Some pretty dark stuff happens in it. But it's about London below.
Yeah.
So it's like this hidden world below London where the tube stations are actually named after the things they are. So there's an angel that lives in Angel. He turns out to be a murderous demon. Spoiler alert.
Elephant Castle. There's an elephant.
There's an elephant in castle.
Do you know the origins of that name?
No.
It's hilarious. There was a Spanish prince who lived there. Their house was there, and it was named after him. His nickname was the Young Prince, and that was L'Infant Castille.
Okay.
And it was like, no, it sounds like Elephant and Castle in it. So they just called it Elephant and Castle, translation by ear kind of thing.
All the places in the world are named after you. Like, I think one of the things is you don't go to Blackfriars because they will skin you alive. But it's about homelessness.
Yeah.
About homelessness in London now, because what happens to the main guy is he talks to one of these people that come from London below. People don't see him and people don't know him, and he kind of falls out of existence. And it's about how that feels going into like from normal life to homelessness, because people just don't acknowledge your existence anymore.
Yeah. The way you describe it, I would love to see it, but I read this book and I hated it. But, maybe like interpreted would be, a
Yeah.
bit different. I think I just didn't really like the way it was written. My favorite Neil Gaiman novel, The Ocean at the End of the Lane,
Okay, yeah.
I think that's like a really good, heart-wrenching kind of story. If I want to see anything, it's probably that.
The play of that was very good.
Yeah.
So that was it, really. Neverwhere. It's just a really interesting story, and you can make it like really British. I see a lot of your normal British actors in there that are in everything.
Yeah.
If Rowan Atkinson's not in there somewhere, you failed, kind of.
Yeah.
If Hugh Grant's not in there, oops.
What other tube stations are there where we can make fun of?
There are some very odd ones. I mean, obviously, there's Cockfosters.
That's Cockfosters, yeah.
Cockfosters. That's the classic one. It's at the end of the Piccadilly line.
Yeah.
So it's constant. We're going to Cockfosters, and then every immature person on the carriage like, and I'm one of them every time.
You didn't have to say that. You didn't have to admit that information.
Boom. So yeah, but I would love to see Neverwhere as a film. I think you could even make it, if you really wanted to, you could keep it as like a young adult film, and it would be very popular.
Yeah. Maybe now as well, like there's kind of teen horror is really big right now.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be a good time as well. One kind of movie I always wanted to make, but no one would watch it and no one would fund it.
Okay.
I want to make an Eastern.
A what?
An Eastern.
An Eastern,
Yeah,
like a Western,
like a Western, but
East.
in the East.
a samurai film.
No, not that East.
Okay.
Basically, Hungary again.
Okay.
There's an interesting bit of Hungarian lore about outlaws, and they had like their own kind of subculture. So imagine, right, kind of southeast Hungary. It's very flat and arid. It's not quite a desert, but it is. The economy is very similar there. Like would be in a desert. You can't grow anything, basically, and there's like no one wants to live there. So it's basically wandering trade people and the few people who just about managed to live there, and thieves.
Okay.
So there was this big outlaw culture from the 1600s to the 1800s, and it was like a culture. They all dressed the same. They all had like similar values. You know, they had their own type of language. So basically they had like these big hats that were like the mix of a cowboy hat mixed with a pirate hat. They had giant mustaches and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Their main weapon was whips, and they can fucking do anything with the whip. The most famous outlaw was, translated, Alexander Rose. He was not only wanted in Hungary for the most amount of money ever, he was wanted for other countries, just all around the world. And he's got fun stories. And I'd just like to see like a good, I don't know, a Western, but in Hungary. It'd be really cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah, no one would want to see that ever.
I think people would want to see that. It's an interesting take
If
on
I
the
explain
cowboy
it
genre.
like this, but that's, you know, that's how do you sell that, you know?
Like that.
Oh, okay. So fund my Kickstarter for a new Eastern.
I bet you're going to go somewhere else. Like they had these really funny hats and they twizzled their mustaches up, and that's where hipsters came from.
Yeah, maybe.
It's spread out into the world.
Yeah. I mean, outlaws robbed people and killed, but, you know, hipsters are worse.
So there's a book that I adore called The Painted Man. I think I've recommended it to you a few times. It's just a fantastic piece of kind of fantasy writing, to be honest with you. It's about a guy, well, he starts off as a kid. He sees his parents die because every night demons rise up from the floor, and they're different. Like there's like flame demon, rock demons, wood demons, stone demons, all that kind of stuff. And they've got these ancient glyphs that they have to carve into their fence posts and that to protect them. But they've only got these ancient glyphs that kind of half do the job, so people die all the time. And it's about his journey to go and try and find more. And he finds this society, the people that fight the demons instead of just hide from them, and what they do. And obviously, being the fantasy story that it is, he finds the hidden city.
Yeah.
With a hidden city with the hidden things that nobody ever found before in the 300 years, even though it's just over there in the desert. And it's just a really cool story.
Yeah. Is that another tween story?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, some of it's pretty dark. You know, people get murdered, people get decapitated, and I just think there's not really any good like fantasy out there anymore. Proper fantasy, not just like Game of Thrones where it's just people, they just happen to have dragons running around. You know, proper lore and things you can build on and things you can work with. I think the last good example was like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Not including
First and last good example.
Exactly, yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, I just think it's a really interesting start to a world building, because it's not just the main guy, you've got two other people as well. So he fights them. There's a lute player who kind of finds out that he can charm them if he plays certain notes. And there's a strong woman character who is basically a kind of like a witch. She has herbs and spices and to make potions and fight. I feel like there's not any good fantasy out there, and I think this would be a really good starting point to create a world.
I think Conan's are good. Both Conan movies.
I haven't seen those.
Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women. That is good.
I haven't seen that Dungeons and Dragons film.
Yeah.
I've seen the first one.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. Dungeons and Dragons film was okay, but it was a joke.
Yeah. I would like to see more fantasy stuff as well. More Conan. Make King Conan. But still Arnie. Still somehow alive, Arnie.
Conan on a Zimmer frame.
Yeah.
Made out of the bones of his enemies.
My last honorable mention is a very vague, large topic. What you're saying with like fantasy movies is that there's not enough fucking prehistory movies out there. I don't like to use the word prehistory as well, by the way. It's like a very weird term. It's like it's supposed to mean before writing.
Oh, okay.
There's The Quest for Fire, which is about cavemen.
Which is by cavemen.
Yeah.
It's written by cavemen. There's somewhere on the wall of a cave in the world. There's scene 1, act 1.
An alarm goes off, and the guy goes, I have to go to kill a mammoth. Flashback to his childhood. He's like a really bad writer as well.
The narrator says.
Yeah. The main guy is the most handsome, most powerful guy. He gets all the women. He clubs all the women. Takes them into cave.
Goes out clubbing.
So there's not enough, like, caveman films. Yeah, there's The Quest for Fire. There's the really bad...
Year 1?
No, 10,000 BC.
Okay. What's year 1?
Batman Year 1? That's
No,
one.
I'm sure there's a year 1 with Michael Cera and someone.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a comedy. I mean like a real movie.
Yeah.
You know, not like...
Raw.
Raw, yeah. 10,000 BC is like one of the worst movies ever made. Just, the guy who made Moonfall.
Okay, really?
Yeah. Just imagine him making a caveman film. It's supposed to follow Neanderthals, and then it ends with, and there's not like a time jump, the Egyptians building pyramids with mammoths.
Obviously.
It's 2 movies that people know of. And one kind of serious, and it's okay, Quest of Fire. And then the 10,000 BC, which is embarrassing
I think
to all
this is-
humankind.
how can you make a film about people like grunting at each other and...
Well,
I mean, there's Fast and the Furious, but...
there you go, there's an example. It should be Vin Diesel and The Rock. He's still called The Rock in the film. Do they still have that thing in their contract? Kill a mammoth at one punch.
How do you make that film and what's it about?
That's why it's an honorable mention, but I just like to say it. I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, I would probably just have them talk English. And then, honestly, all the new shit. We learned another totally new kind of human that was just lived along the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens, the Denisovans. I'm like, that would be cool with Vin Diesel.
Probably.
Yeah.
I've got wife there. I got wife there. I got wife there. They're all unconscious. I clubbed them with my big club.
What's your last thing?
My last one, and there was a film made of this, but it was either 81 or 71, and it was straight to TV, so it doesn't count in my book. How has no one made a film about Socrates?
Okay. Why him specifically?
Because he's the father of Western philosophy. He's such an important character in the history of civilization. And his story is very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, he came from an affluent background and he kind of gave up a lot of his possessions. He didn't live like in abstinence, but he very much restricted what he did in terms of consumption and sexual adventurousness, which was very much everywhere at the time. And he constantly questioned people's beliefs. And in the end, that's what got him like on trial and eventually executed for corrupting the youth against religion. All he ever did really was question things. Because he questioned democracy in a way to try and improve it, he was murdered for it. He was set for trial.
Was he the guy who came up with the saying that I know everything because I know nothing or something like that? I'm butchering it very badly.
He always came from a position of ignorance.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever claimed to know everything. Everything he taught, every conversation he started, came from an idea of, I know nothing, teach me about it. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is I know nothing.
That is it, yeah. I just really like that quote because it kind of speaks to that fallacy that people have, that smart people always question their intelligence. And dumb people are always like very confident. And they go like, yeah, I know this. Like me.
You could come at this film with so many angles. You could start with the trial and do like a whole flashback from his birth all the way to his death. There's the fact that none of Socrates' writings survived.
Yeah.
Everything we know about him came from
Quotations from...
Plato's dialogues.
Okay.
Most of Plato's work is him having a conversation with Socrates. His life was just really interesting. You know, he just used to stand in the market and he never bathed or he never did anything, and he had a famously ugly face that all of his friends made fun of him for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know how it feels. And he just, his goal was constantly to question everything. And that would be so annoying. You can see why he was murdered, why he was executed for.
Yeah, would this be like a... Yeah, it would be interesting to see how you make that into a movie. Like annoying character. I guess you can really go into his life and like make people understand why he's like that.
Yeah.
And that could be charming. Who do you cast as Socrates? Vin Diesel.
I know nothing.
Yep, got that down. I don't know. You'd have to cast several, because I see it as a life story.
Yeah.
So you'd need
Do you want the full biopic?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Vin Diesel as baby Socrates. Look, he can talk.
I
Philosophy.
am Socrates.
I am Socrates.
I think that's the episode title. Vin Diesel as baby Socrates. Plato, played by The Rock.
But no, it's very interesting. He obviously invented the Socratic method
Yeah.
of just constantly questioning things, and I just think it's really interesting, and I would love to do it. I would love to just be that person, just sit down, make up a stall in London, and just tell me about justice, and then I can just question people. And the idea was to kind of really get down to what justice is or what those things are. It's to question people's beliefs so they rearrange their thoughts, because eventually everybody contradicts themselves.
You do that to a certain extent.
Yeah, everybody does.
No, but like, yeah, noticeable.
Yeah.
But it's good. I like us when we have like conversations and I'm like really confident in some belief, and then you're like, but no, what about this? And I'm like, it never occurred to me. So that's why I like talking to you, because you always do that, or like you always make me see some sort of angle.
But I would just like to also just annoy people with it, you know? I just really, I want someone to do, like, I think the most famous one that I read, get someone to describe to you a tree in a way that what they're describing can't be anything else.
As for my fix, what would you like to see the most?
I would like to see the chess film.
Yeah, I think that might be my top pick as well.
Yeah.
Even though I hate sports and I hate any kind of competition movie is like a sports movie to me, because they have the similar structure. So I don't like sports movies.
You don't want to see a montage of like, you're the best, around, lots of chess pieces moving, nothing ever gonna take you down, running up some steps, holding chessboards.
They go out to the park with the comically large chests. They're beating like 5-year-olds.
Someone with a stopwatch. Yeah, high five.
Blindfolded. What piece is this? They have like a really offensive Asian stereotype instructor. What piece is this? Tell me. I can't feel it. Tell me with heart. I would like to see your Socrates movie.
Yeah.
If Miloš Forman from Amadeus would still be alive, I would like him to direct it.
Yeah, that would be really good.
So Socrates. And Falco score it.
We Socrates?
It's been lovely talking to you.
Yes, you too.
Probably Socrates. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, he would rather left than fight. It's wrong or right. You gotta like him. Yeah.